Welcome back, and thanks again for staying with us. Now, what is the importance of trends for businesses and brands? Well, trend forecasters Dion Chang and Khumo Theko have the answers for us, and they've compiled a special report. It's called the Flux Trends, which takes a look at the key trends for 2018 across a number of sectors, and these include technology, retail, economy, social, cultural sphere, and the natural world, as well as diplomacy, to find out a little bit of what 2018 has in store for us, and also to take a look at the report, what it means and how it's compiled. We're joined in studio by trend forecaster, yes, that is a thing, Khumo Theko, multimedia producer Khumo Pudumo, as well as multimedia editor Dudu Mathebula. Thank you very much for your time and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, a tale of two Khumos. I'll start with this Khumo. Perhaps you can give us a little bit of an overview of how you come up with these trends and the forecast at least.
Well, what we do is we basically gather content and curate content within the spectrum of 2016, 2017, flowing into 2018. And what this report is basically an overview of what it means for a society that is woke, how brands need to then apply certain practices to working towards catering to Generation Z especially. And what we've seen is that there are two major pillars. So firstly, we're looking at the merging of technology and how that's now being embedded within robotics and how that's now coming into society with the first humanoid robots being gratified citizenship in Saudi Arabia. And then in another spectrum, we're looking at how social political issues are now merged in with social economical issues, where brands need to now stand for something and they need to say what they stand for. So brand activism is playing a far bigger role within 2017 going into 2018.
And I'm glad you touched on that word woke, which means that, you know, the brand has to be conscious, it has to be alert, it has to know the signs of the times. And unfortunately, H&M had made a huge blunder with regards to that. So brands are having to be more and more conscious of what they're saying, how they say it. This is something we're going to see in 2018 as well, I'd imagine.
Definitely. And what brands also need to realize is that because so many occurrences have been happening, I mean, we saw it last year with Pepsi as well, with Dove in South Africa, simply apologizing and moving the ad off doesn't make it okay. More discussions need to be catered to as to how exactly a brand apologizes to the consumer base and actually acknowledges the mistake that they made and how they can then reconcile with their consumer and move forward into a more loyal, trusting relationship with their consumers.
Khumo, let's come back to you because we touched on H&M now, which brings us to fashion. That's your forte. Speak to us about what we can anticipate in the year 2018 when it comes to fashion. What are those trends? Are we looking more ladylike, put together? Are we rebels? What's happening?
That's quite interesting because, you know, fashion in 2018 is actually more focused on the revival of the 90s. I'm not going to lie to you. Aaliyah's coming back. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is coming back.
Yeah, the haircut you can see as well there. That box haircut is in.
Yes, it's back in. Everything's back in fashion right now, considering, you know, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and his neon colors, the granddad sneakers as well, from your Balenciagas, your Pradas, your Gucci's. They're actually trying to resonate with what was the 90s, but putting it back into the frame of mind that is 2018. And I feel like everybody's trying to incorporate different styles to incorporate the revival of the 90s as a whole. So it's quite interesting how trends are actually just coming back bit by bit, bit by bit, but with different textiles and textures. So that's 2018 for you. It's different textiles, different textures, different palettes, different color palettes, and it's going to be huge.
And those neon colors, color blocking?
Well, I don't think it's color blocking as per se, but it's probably like maybe like a neon fanny pack with an all black ensemble. So it's just to sort of create a contrast between the bright colors and the dark colors, or maybe your reds, or maybe your blues, you know, just to sort of formulate an idea and a concept of like different, a mixture of just creativity in one sector.
Now, when you say Aaliyah, what comes to mind for me are the crop tops and the Doc Martens.
Which is ironic because men are actually looking into wearing like more crop tops. They're looking to wear more crop jerseys, crop jackets, and it's so interesting because gender fluidity is a new thing now. So men are actually looking to wear female floral shirts, and they're looking to wear female denims as well, and skirts, actually. Let's actually look at that.
Really?
So this is like a year of just a lot of fluidity within the fashion industry, and looking at how Vivienne Westwood pulled it off with the pleated skirts. She actually really incorporated that really well in her 2017 collection, and I feel as though if we look at it from a much broader perspective, that's really going to take over the industry, the retail industry, and that's how brands actually going to try and create unisex clothing, if it's possible. Yeah.
Talking about a takeover, I mean, I don't know if we can ever go back to a time before social media. And Dudu, I'm going to ask you to then come into the equation there. Social media platforms and what brands are doing and saying on the various media is also something that's quite important. I mean, if you're not saying it on Twitter or Instagram, you may as well not say it at all.
Absolutely. I mean, what I'm basically here to talk about is that when you're looking at social media and you're looking at the ease of when you're a photographer, for instance, and the amount of equipment that we have to use, it becomes quite cumbersome to embrace such platforms like Instagram, which is quite powerful. Your images can be shared broadly as you like, but when you try and think about what photographers have to go through to get their work onto such platforms, you know, you have to look at platforms like, you know, where software is designed specifically for photographers, so that when you plug in your camera, for instance, you know, the software is able to just post directly onto your social. So these are the trends that we're looking at in 2018. We're looking at the return of movie cameras. We saw a lot of that at Afropunk late last year. And we're also looking at artificial intelligence. You know, when you're covering an event, for instance, you're coming from a wedding, you've got about 2,000 images on your SD card, and you're just sitting there trying to think, where are you going to start? So some of the software that they've created now is that you just plug in while you're making yourself a cup of coffee. The software does it for you. It mimics the type of, you know, settings that you have on your camera, your preferences. It looks at perfect lighting, and it just streamlines all those images for you. So these are quite exciting things that we're looking at. I think a lot of professional photographers are excited about.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in just a moment. We are going to take a quick break. But I mean, when you talk about artificial intelligence, a minister of artificial intelligence has been appointed at the United Arab Emirates. So we'll delve in a little deeper when it comes to that. We'll also focus on retail and other subject matters. But do stay with us for that and more.
Minister, are you able to say whether you fired Thokozani Magwaza or not? Are you able to tell us what happened? Because he's claiming you fired him. And we're just trying to get answers. We need to know what's going on with SASSA. Who's taking over, ma'am?
Welcome back, and thank you so much again for joining us. What is the importance of trends for businesses and brands? That's what we're unpacking this morning. Trend forecasters Dion Chang and Kumo Teko have the answers for us, and they compiled what we know as the Flux Report, or Flux Trends at least, which it took a look at some of the 2016-27 trends, and of course gave us a preview of what we can expect this year across a number of sectors such as technology, retail, the social cultural space in which we live, the natural world, as well as diplomacy. And we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger with my guests just before the break, and we focus on artificial intelligence. And I touched on the fact that, you know, the United Arab Emirates are having what we know as a minister of artificial intelligence. Yes. It's that serious at the moment. You know, we simply can't ignore it.
We simply cannot ignore it. Yeah. And what we're seeing is that governments are now playing a role in everyone wants to become a hub of something with regards to innovation within their country. Yeah. And what Dubai as well wants is that by 2020 they want to have at least 30% of RoboCops part of their workforce on the streets. They currently do have RoboCops on the streets, but they want to increase that. And what we're seeing is that the merging of humanoid robots within society and seeing how that's going to play out, and how we're now going to start working with the concept of cobots. It's no longer something that we're imagining in a story. It's actually a reality. It's not a reality.
It's not RoboCop.
Your co-worker is going to be a robot.
Oh my gosh, we might even be replaced. Imagine a robot news anchor.
And you see, that's where
days are numbered. Yes.
That's where the concept of new skills comes in, and how businesses now need to start considering the aspect of not simply just hiring you for what is on your CV, but how they can then upskill you and bring in creative aspects to innovate their companies, as well as ensuring that they remain relevant within the technological space.
Which brings to the equation innovation. Right?
Yes.
And when we talk about innovation, yes, it's the buzzword. It is the it thing. I mean, there was entrepreneurship and now there's innovation. I want to focus on innovation in the retail space, because I do know that Marie-Claire and a lot of people in print, I think, whether it's newspapers or magazine, etc., are having to think out of the box. We no longer just want the hard copy that you can smell, feel, touch, taste, etc. You're having to diversify, as it were, in order to boost sales. Speak to me about how they have gone into the innovation space.
See, what Marie-Claire's actually done is very smart, because they've tapped into a space which is the retail space, which is also struggling. And what we're realizing is that there is no concept of online and offline anymore. There's a no-line element, and that's what brands need to start considering. So what Marie-Claire did is that they actually brought their content to life by having a pop-up store in New York, where consumers could come in and literally become part of the specific aspects within the magazines that they liked, which was a great emergence of creating a new consumer experience for their readers and now shoppers.
Now, when it comes to the space of retail as well, we're also seeing that, you know, people's buying power is no longer just, you know, a thing that we just talk about. It's real, and people are choosing to trade with each other. They're choosing to trade online. They're choosing to buy secondhand clothes, whatever the case may be there. Tell me a little bit about that phenomenon where the consumer is now feeling more and more empowered.
You know, it's interesting, because we studied like I think it was like an idea or something about instant gratification. Everybody's looking into instant gratification. If you go online and you're currently looking for a black jean, you're not just currently looking for just a black jean. You're looking for a jean that fits you according to your own persona, your own characteristics, or your own personalities. And that's the thing about like online shopping right now, is that you're not necessarily certain about what you're buying, but you're buying something that's actually going to resonate with you. So people are more interested in what I would want, what I would look great, and not what the buyers are buying into. The same as Coolest Monkey in the Jungle. You know, that was quite a phenomenon. It was like, how do you actually put up something that has oppressed, you know, so many people, and put it on a black kid, but you don't put it on other kids? And that's just like, we need to break free from how the content team creates content as compared to how the buyer actually wants their outfits to fit on them or sit on them.
And then, yeah, Dudu, of course, just you know, building up from what you just said there, we saw the activism on social media, and that, I think, is what raised the alarm.
Yes,
normal platforms would not perhaps have been able to capture the anger, you know, and the sentiment of the time, but we saw people take to Twitter and raise the alarm.
I mean, gone are the days where, you know, we in the newspaper industry or magazine industry, we just go off to the presses, print an adverts that will offend people, and the only feedback that you get is when you come to printing the next edition.
Letter to the editor.
Letter to the editor.
Yeah.
And right now, I love the way that social media has just, it spreads like wildfire. When you offend one person and they see it, and they will spread the information so that everybody knows about it. So I think this also puts a lot of, you know, brands, holds them to account about messages that are construed, messages that are not clear about their own standpoint. And it also puts, you know, it raises a certain level of consciousness, you know, with teams that build things together. There has to be questions asked. If you're working with black people, ask, is this all right? And I think this is quite an interesting time where brands are being held accountable for their actions and the messages that they send, and to also just be aware of their surroundings and the people that surround them. So I think social media is one place that we have to embrace, especially for brands.
All right, we'll leave it there. It seems to me like it's no longer business as usual. It has to be business unusual. Just one or two of the points that I picked up. I love that. No online, offline anymore. There's no line. And also gender fluidity. So those are just some of the trends that we're focusing on in 2018. Trend forecaster Kumo Teko, multimedia producer Kumo Pudumo, as well as multimedia editor Dudu Matebula, speaking to us about the trends for this coming year, or this year that we're already in. All that and more in just a moment. Stay with us.